I am the adopted son of the Miller family. Only because my sister Chloe wanted a playmate. I've always been obedient and well-behaved, knowing my place. Until she took me under her wing and brought me into Miller Corporation to work. She pinned me against the desk, and I had no room left to retreat. When Chloe came home, she was already drunk. I'm not drunk. Chloe swayed and tried to push me away, but due to being drunk and weak, she had no strength at all. Sis, let me help you to your room, I said, wrapping my arm around her slender waist as we made our way to the second floor. Who's your sister? Don't call me that. Chloe pouted, her cheeks tinged with pink. Her words held no intimidation, instead carrying an adorably naive charm. I shook my head, focusing on my footing. Glancing sideways at Chloe, I noticed her long lashes casting faint shadows beneath her eyelids, her pink lips slightly pursed. Her entire demeanor looked soft and endearing, making my heart skip a beat. Forcing myself to look away, I turned the knob to Chloe's room. Just as I was about to place her on the bed, she clung to me stubbornly. Sis, we're home, I whispered. Chloe tilted her head and rested it against the crook of my neck. Her warm, damp breath felt like a bewitching mantra, instantly tensing every muscle in my body. Sis, I'll help you to bed, I managed to say, struggling to stay composed. No, I don't want to. Chloe slung both arms around my neck and lifted her gaze. Her wine-flushed eyes sparkled with a sultry allure, quickening my heartbeat by several beats. Sis, stop messing around. You need rest, I said, gripping her wrist and trying to pull her hand away. But unexpectedly, Chloe bumped her head against my chest and snapped angrily. What are you doing? Are you ignoring what I say now? I paused, realizing she was drunk, and explained helplessly, how could I? I'll do whatever you say. Oomph, always saying such nice things. Chloe's voice softened as she nuzzled her cheek against my chest. My Adam's apple bobbed violently at her movements, my entire body burning up as if set aflame. This can't go on any longer. I took several deep breaths before continuing. Sis, just be good and listen to me. You'll feel better after some sleep. Who's not being good? You're the one not behaving. She furrowed her brows, then suddenly flashed a mischievous grin before leaning back abruptly, pulling me down onto the bed before I could react. Chloe flipped over and pinned me beneath her. Big sis, huh? Why are you calling me big sis? Chloe blinked her large, dewy eyes and asked curiously. Big sis, I'm Ethan. I turned my head away, struggling to ignore the raging desires screaming in my mind. No, Ethan is so well behaved, he'd never be mean to me like you are. Chloe pouted and said, I'm not scolding you. Lie down first, okay? I got it. You're Carter Johnson. Chloe's words made my pupils contract, and an inexplicable fury surged straight to the top of my head. Who is Carter Johnson? I grabbed her arm and asked. Did I guess right? I know you like me, but you shouldn't follow me all the way to my house. Chloe tapped my forehead, looking somewhat reproachful. Then does Chloe like him? Sis, do you like him? Well, I like. Chloe swayed unsteadily, collapsing onto me before she could finish her sentence. I froze in place, my entire body feeling as if it had plunged into an icy abyss. Chloe already likes someone. This realization nearly plunged me into pitch-black despair. Am I still a step too late? Or is it already too late? But I have no one else, only Chloe. What should I do if she rejects me too? I lowered my gaze to Chloe, who was sound asleep on top of me, and a terrifying thought surfaced in my mind. Feelings aren't set in stone. If I could get closer to Chloe, keep her by my side, then maybe she'd come to like me too. Dark emotions welled up in my eyes as I gently rolled over and laid her down on the bed. Chloe's body and heart should both belong to me, but no one ever said you must first win the heart before claiming the body. I placed my hand on the buttons of her shirt, slowly unfastening her garments. The next morning, my ingrained circadian rhythm woke me early, and for a moment I was disoriented by the unfamiliar furnishings and decor before the memories of last night flooded back like a tidal wave. I closed my eyes, acutely aware of Chloe lying beside me yet unable to bring myself to turn and look at her. She was drunk yesterday, but I wasn't. Yet I took advantage of her drunkenness to do something even more despicable. Will she resent me? Will she hit me? Scold me? What if she gets so angry that she kicks me out of the Miller family, or even cuts ties with me forever? At this moment, the belated unease and regret made me want to kill myself. Sis, do you like him? I do. Chloe's words from last night flashed clearly through my mind. Yes, I had already reached a point of no return. I shut my eyes in despair. Just then, Chloe's voice suddenly sounded beside me. Ethan, are you about to cry? Too, I startled, opening my eyes and turning my head, locking gazes with Chloe's probing stare. She pursed her lips, pondered for a moment, then asked again, are we really going to cry now? Cry? How could I? I haven't shed a single tear since the day they sent me to the orphanage. I grew up in an orphanage. When I was 12, Mr. Miller came with Chloe to adopt a boy. Back then, I was short and scrawny because the orphanage meals weren't exactly nourishing. Chloe, 3 years my senior, stood at the front in a pink princess dress, her skin rosy and delicate, her eyes large and sparkling, truly resembling a little fairy. Our gazes met fleetingly in the air before flickering apart. There wasn't the slightest ripple of emotion in her eyes as she looked at me. At that moment, I thought I had no chance. Little did I know, in the end, Chloe picked 3 people, and I was among them. I'll only ask you one question. If one day I'm bullied by someone you can't defeat, what would you do? I don't remember what the other 2 said anymore, but I distinctly remember my own response. Make him pay back tenfold however he bullied you. If you can't beat him, bite him. Then I was adopted by the Miller family. Chloe's mother passed away from illness 3 years ago, and Mr. Miller was often away on business. So most of the time, it was just Chloe and me supporting each other through thick and thin. I really like this word. It's so beautiful. Sometimes I even think, how wonderful it would be if there were no one else but just the 2 of us. But as time passed, Chloe gradually drifted further and further away from me. There were so many things she talked about that I didn't understand. An invisible barrier seemed to have formed between our worlds. I wanted to break through this barrier, so I studied hard, skipped grades, and pushed myself to learn everything I could just to keep up with her pace. But fate still seemed unsatisfied. After Chloe started working, she came home less and less often, to the point where even meeting once became extremely difficult. But, now that our relationship has grown closer, I'm even more afraid of losing her. If I cry, would Chloe not get angry and not reject me? Thinking of this, I summoned my emotions and in the blink of an eye made my eyes turn red. Hey, what's with you? You say you're crying, and now you're really about to cry. Chloe visibly panicked. You, don't. Before I could finish my sentence, Chloe urgently interrupted. Oh dear, I was completely blackout drunk last night. It's all my fault. Don't cry. I'll definitely take full responsibility. Responsibility. She didn't blame me, didn't say she didn't want me, instead, she said she'd take responsibility for me. A secret joy rose in my heart, yet I showed no sign of it on my face, even managing to squeeze out a few tears for good measure. It was the alcohol's fault. I don't even know how I could have. Oh, Ethan, if you're truly distressed, tell me whatever you want, I'll make it up to you. Anything within my power, I promise. Chloe gently wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and murmured, Ethan, don't cry anymore. Are you telling me the truth? I asked again, my voice trembling with unease. Of course, just tell me what kind of compensation you want, as long as it's within my power. My mind raced wildly, and I nearly lost control of my reason, wanting to voice the desires I'd harbored for so long. But I also knew deeply that this wasn't the right moment. Not to mention, Chloe was currently misunderstanding, thinking she had done something to me while drunk. If she later found out I had taken advantage of the situation, she might not even give me a chance to explain. Ethan, after waiting all these years, fate has given us this chance, we can't rush it now. I took 2 deep breaths and pretended to be understanding as I said, Sis, I don't want anything else. I just don't want to go abroad. I want to stay by your side always. Stay by my side? Chloe echoed in confusion. That's right. I'll graduate in a few months. I want to join Miller & Company and stay by your side, I said with absolute certainty. Chloe hesitated for a few seconds, as if weighing the pros and cons. After all, it was Mr. Miller who had originally proposed sending me abroad for further studies. In the end, she said nothing more, only smiling softly and replying, all right. 4 months later, I successfully joined Miller's company. Chloe arranged for me to work in the marketing department, explaining that it would expose me to many clients and better facilitate my learning and growth. I nodded in agreement, though inwardly I wasn't pleased. I wanted to stay as close to her as possible, but I knew I couldn't make it too obvious. I couldn't scare her away. The days flew by, and on this particular day, I went to deliver a report to Chloe, only to find her in a meeting, so I sat in her office waiting for her. I took my time examining every corner of the office, like a peeping Tom, hoping to understand more about Chloe in her work setting. Sitting in Chloe's chair, I envisioned her usual diligent demeanor while working, and my heart couldn't help but race a little faster. Just as I was lost in these thoughts, the office door suddenly received 2 knocks, and then I saw Phil, the sales director, walk in. He spotted me and froze for a moment, then walked over with a darkened expression to demand, Who are you? Why are you in Director Chloe's office? I fidgeted to my feet, a flash of shame crossing my cheeks as I explained, I came to deliver a report. Director Chloe asked me to wait for her in her office. Phil narrowed his eyes, undisguised disgust flashing in them. So, who gave you permission to sit in Director Chloe's chair? And why are you making such a disgusting face? You're some kind of pervert, aren't you? My blood boiled. But just as I was about to snap back, I remembered we were still at the company. I couldn't embarrass her because of me. So I swallowed my anger and said, I didn't mean anything by it. Ha, you'd better not mean anything else. Looking at you, you're still quite young and fairly handsome. Don't go getting any improper ideas. A wicked idea. I narrowed my eyes, knowing full well Phil must have gotten the wrong idea. But even if I had some shady thoughts, what's it to him? Since when does an employee have the authority to boss around their employer? Wait, What if he's the one with ulterior motives? At that thought, my expression darkened as well, and I asked coldly, what does it matter to you whether I have ulterior motives or not? Oh, did I hit a nerve? Getting all worked up now? Phil sneered and snapped. I knew it, this rotten social climate is all thanks to you younger generations. Just because you're decent looking, you laze around all day instead of working hard, chasing after nonsense. But let me make one thing crystal clear, Director Chloe isn't the kind of person you think she is. You'd better crawl back to wherever you came from. What kind of person am I thinking of? I curled my lips, walked around the desk to approach him, and provoked, I wasn't going to say it, but since you've guessed it, I'll make it clear, I'm Director Chloe's person. Pa, what kind of scum are you, claiming to be Director Chloe's person? Even if you knelt to polish her shoes, she wouldn't spare you a glance. Who else should I look at if not me? At you? A greasy middle-aged uncle? Who are you calling uncle? Say it one more time, motherfucker. Phil shouted in exasperation, in this room, it's either me or you, who else would I call uncle if not you? Fuck, you creak. The door swung open again as Phil rolled up his sleeves. Chloe stood at the doorway, frozen, staring at us. Director Chloe, which department is this guy even from? First, he sits in your chair, then he starts spouting nonsense. Fire him already. Nonsense? Chloe turned to glance at me, then stepped inside and shut the door. What exactly did he say? I averted my gaze awkwardly, about to explain, but the other person beat me to it. Ha! What nonsense! He practically said you're keeping him. Phil shot me a furious glare. If the situation had allowed, I felt he might have even spat at me. I didn't care what others thought, but Chloe was here, what would she think? My heart leaped into my throat as my gaze locked onto her, filled with deep regret for having spoken so recklessly just moments ago. Just as I was writhing like an ant on a hot pan, consumed by unbearable anxiety, Chloe suddenly flashed a smile. She tilted her head to glance at me, then turned to Phil and said, if you insist on putting it that way, I suppose it could work. 3. What did you just say? Phil's voice cracked with shock. Chloe didn't seem to mind at all. She just walked over, linked her arm with mine, and said, what? Are you surprised? He even has his own room in my house. CCC Chloe Director, why you must be joking. Not at all. Look, he's not just handsome, his figure is great too. Oh, that's right. Ethan even has an 8-pack. As she said this, Chloe actually lifted the hem of my shirt and quickly flashed it to Phil before letting go. Phil's eyes widened as if struck by lightning. So, how's my little brother's figure, little brother? Phil looked at me, then at Chloe, finally letting out a long sigh after a pause. So it's your little brother. Director Chloe, this joke of yours is really... Halfway through his sentence, Phil suddenly choked up, then looked at me again with confusion. Director Chloe, if I recall correctly, the CEO only has you as his daughter. Yeah, Ethan was adopted by my dad. Phil was completely dumbfounded, looking at me with a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. By the way, what did you need me for? Oh, right, look at me. Got carried away with chatting. Thinking you worked late again last night and had meetings all morning today, I bought you some coffee. As he spoke, he pushed the plastic bag in his hand forward and continued, I know you don't like it too bitter, so I asked for some sugar. While saying this, Phil glanced at me deliberately or not, the corners of his lips curled up in an annoying, mocking smile. Alright, if there's nothing else, you may leave. Phil nodded and gave me one last glance before turning to exit the door. Only Chloe and I remained in the office. Standing in place, I felt a slow rise of restless unease. Ethan. Chloe's voice trailed in, and I almost felt the weight of a sword hanging above my head. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my panic from showing. I wouldn't have guessed you had it in you. She walked up to me and punched my shoulder. I started to explain, but she cut me off. Being kept? TSK, TSK, TSK. You really dare say anything to win an argument? No, I didn't. Chloe gave me no chance to explain, staring at me meaningfully as she stepped closer one pace at a time. I retreated in panic, my tongue tied in knots under her scrutinizing gaze, unable to utter another word. In the end, with my waist pressed against the desk and nowhere left to retreat, my mind became a tangled mess. I thought you had plenty to say before I came in. Why are you playing mute now? Chloe propped one hand on the desk while playfully thumping my chest with the other, teasing as she asked. I never said that. He got the wrong idea. It took me a long moment to squeeze out just this sentence. Oh, then tell me what you said that made Phil misunderstand? I just thought I was about to speak when my gaze was stolen by lips that were suddenly too close. Chloe's lips were beautifully shaped, full and rosy, made even more tempting now with some glossy lip gloss. I licked my lower lip and turned my head away. What's wrong? Realizing you can't talk your way out of this? Chloe didn't notice anything unusual about me and moved even closer. The scent of her perfume lingered at the tip of my nose, stirring my thoughts slightly. I gritted my teeth and pushed her away, shoving the crumpled market report into her hands as I stammered. Here's last month's market report. I should go. With that, I practically fled toward the door. But after just 2 steps, remembering the coffee Phil had brought over, I turned back, snatched the cup from her hands, and only then made my escape. Unfortunately, the day's misfortunes weren't over yet. As I waited for the elevator before leaving work, I ran straight into Phil again. "Ha, if it isn't my little brother." Phil greeted me with a smirk. "Your brother? With that face of yours, what makes you think you qualify as any relation of mine?" I retorted without hesitation. "Now don't be like that. If I can't be your brother, maybe I could be your brother-in-law?" Phil chuckled smugly, and I dug my fingernails deep into the palms of my hands. Ding! The elevator chime jolted me slightly awake as I stepped inside, not even wanting to glance at Phil anymore. But this guy seemed determined to antagonize me, casually following me and while keeping his mouth running non-stop. "Hey bro, give me some advice. What kinds of food does director Chloe usually like? What does she enjoy doing?" I remained silent, just praying the elevator would move faster. Never knew before, but last time when we visited clients together, I realized director Chloe can really hold her liquor. And her drunken reactions were adorable too, leaning on my shoulder like, "Phil, stop daydreaming." I couldn't take it anymore and interrupted him with a low growl. Phil shot me a glance through the elevator doors, then furrowed his brows before speaking again in a sharp, piercing tone. "Ethan, that's exactly what I should be telling you. Being adopted was already an incredible stroke of luck for you. Stop your wishful thinking." Ding! The elevator doors opened again. With a contemptuous smirk, Phil walked out without looking back, leaving me alone in that cramped space. I panted heavily, torn between fury and helplessness, feeling humiliation and resentment raging through my body like a wild beast. I sat on a roadside bench for quite a while after leaving the building. After the anger faded, what remained was profound confusion and helplessness. Phil had spoken harshly, but his words held truth. That's exactly why I was so furious. I had nothing of my own. Everything I possessed now had been given by the Miller family. I don't even have a complete family. How could I possibly shield Chloe from the storms of life and bring her happiness with someone like me? But I won't let go, not even if it kills me. With red-rimmed eyes, I was about to stand and leave when I noticed a pair of polished leather shoes enter my field of vision. "Excuse me, are you Ethan?" I looked up in surprise to see a man in a meticulously tailored suit that undoubtedly cost a fortune. I composed myself and asked blankly, "Who are you?" "Who I am isn't important. What matters is that I'm here to take you home." Over an hour later, in a mansion located in the prime downtown district, I sat rigidly on the sofa, unable to calm myself despite several attempts to steady my breathing. The man from earlier was named Ross, Damian Ross, the helm of Ross Industries, a household name in this city. Of course, none of that matters. What matters is him saying, "He is my brother, from the same mother but a different father. Mother passed away from illness 6 months ago. Before she left, she told me about your existence." As Damien recounted the story, I glimpsed the full picture of my origins. It turned out that Damien's father, who had nothing back then, married Helen, an heiress from a wealthy family. With support from her family, he managed to establish Ross Industries. At first, the couple was deeply in love and welcomed Damien into the world. But later, as Ross Industries gradually expanded its business, Damien's father succumbed to temptation and had an affair, which Helen caught him in the act. They quarreled bitterly, and in the end, their marriage ended in divorce. Without the support of Helen's family, Rose Industries' business took a sharp downturn. Damien's father came to Helen's door begging for forgiveness, only to be flatly rejected. Blinded by rage, he conceived a sinister plot, hiring men to kidnap Helen and violate her, conceiving me, the seed of sin. Afterward, Helen's family took control of Roth Industries, handing it back to Damien only when he came of age. By the time my existence was discovered, Helen was too far along for an abortion. With no choice, she bore me in bitter resentment and abandoned me at an orphanage. Ever since then, Mother remained perpetually despondent. I never knew why. She wouldn't tell me no matter how I asked, until she revealed the truth on her deathbed. "So, why come looking for me now?" I heard my own voice hiss through clenched teeth. It was Mother's dying wish. She actually carried guilt for you all these years, especially as she grew older. You often appeared in her dreams. Guilt? Ha 20 years later and now you talk to me about guilt. I let out a miserable laugh, my heart feeling as if it had been pierced by countless fine needles, making even breathing difficult. I know the truth is cruel for you, but I hope you can understand Mother. She was suffering too. If you're willing to come back, I promise on Mother's behalf to make up for everything in the past. Make up? How could you possibly make up for it? My eyes burned crimson, each word seeming to drain the very life from my body. Do you have any idea what it feels like to grow up in an orphanage never knowing who your parents were? I was even jealous of those kids whose criminal parents got thrown in prison and left them at the orphanage. At least they fucking knew their parents' names. Do you know what it feels like to live in constant fear and unease every single day? Do you know what it feels like to force myself to act obedient, To perform for every adult who comes to adopt a child? No, you fucking know nothing, and now you're talking about making it up to me? What can you possibly make up for? Can you compensate for the lack of parental love I've missed for over 20 years? I'm sorry. My eyes welled up with tears, my chest rising and falling heavily. After a long pause, I finally whispered hoarsely, what I lost has already been filled by others. What you're offering, I don't need it. With that, I turned to leave the grand mansion. Footsteps hurried behind me as Damien swiftly approached and slipped his business card into my hand. Take your time to consider it before responding. I'll await your reply. Leaving the Ross residence, a tide of bitter melancholy surged within me, overwhelming all my senses. Memories of bygone days flooded my mind as unstoppable tears streamed down my cheeks. I walked endlessly along the streets, no idea how far I'd gone or where I was heading. When exhausted, I simply crouched roadside to rest before trudging onward, stopping and starting until most of the stifling grievance in my chest had dissipated. When I got home, it was already past midnight. As I pushed open the front door, I didn't expect to be greeted by darkness. A lamp was left on in the living room, and on the sofa, Chloe was resting her head on one hand with her eyes closed, unsure if she was asleep. My body, frozen all evening, seemed flooded with warmth. I walked forward in a daze, staring at Chloe's serene face, reaching out to touch but afraid I might wake her. Even if my birth was a mistake, even if those closest to me despise me, what does it matter? I still have Chloe. At least, I still have Chloe. Ethan? You're back? Chloe drowsily opened her eyes and, seeing me standing before her, reached out to tug at the hem of my clothes. Yeah, just got back. My voice tinged with an imperceptible tremor. Did something happen? You didn't respond to my messages or calls. Are you alright? Chloe asked with concern. It's fine, all sorted. Really? Nothing's wrong? Nothing. Chloe stood up and gave me a once-over before dropping the subject. You should head upstairs and get some sleep. You'll feel better after resting. Just like when we were kids, Chloe reached out and ruffled my hair. Okay. The days passed one by one. Because I started working at Miller & Company, I had more and more opportunities to meet and talk with Chloe. Just when I thought our childhood closeness was about to be rekindled, fate played another joke on me. That evening, Mr. Miller surprisingly came home for dinner. The atmosphere was quite pleasant at first, until Mr. Miller brought up a name, Carter Johnson. How are you getting along? Your Uncle Johnson only has this one son, and I must say the young man seems quite promising. Oh dear, Dad, don't worry yourself. We've only known each other for just over a month, it's still early days. Hey, how can I not worry? You're not getting any younger, you need to think about your future. Isn't that right, Ethan? Caught off guard when called upon, I paused before responding with a dry, yes. Oh, come on, don't drag Ethan into this. Since we were kids, whatever you say, he's always agreed without question. Chloe let out an exasperated chuckle. That's only because what I said made sense. Mr. Miller chuckled before steering the conversation back on track. Seriously though, how do you feel about it? Well, how should I put it? I haven't had much interaction with him yet, but Carter seems decent enough for now. From the perspective of family background, he's actually quite suitable for me. Family background, suitable. I clenched the chopsticks in my hand, trapping the words of denial behind my teeth before they could escape. See, I told you it was a perfect match. Your dad always picks the best for you. Mr. Miller beamed with pride, yet his grin felt like a knife, plunging deep into my heart. Give it some more time. If we can secure financial support from the Johnson Group for the company's troubles, maybe things could. Ow, Dad, you're knocking my head again. Who else should I knock? Company matters are company matters, and your matters are your matters, they can't be mixed up. Besides, do you really think I'm the kind of father who'd sacrifice his daughter's happiness to save the company? Mr. Miller was visibly irritated. Security company? Mr. Miller, has something happened at the company? I grasped the main point and asked uncertainly, oh, nothing much, just a small issue with one of the partners. Mr. Miller spoke vaguely and seemed unwilling to elaborate. Yet I sensed something unusual from the fleeting frown between his brows. After dinner, I asked Chloe what exactly was going wrong with her company, but she just brushed me off with a few vague words and didn't tell me the truth. That man, Carter Johnson, you two. After hesitating for a long while, I couldn't help but ask, are you still together? Chloe shrugged and said, do you really like him? I stared intently at her, afraid to miss even the slightest change in her expression. 6. Instead of answering right away, Chloe pointed to a lush fiddle leaf fig in the corner of the living room and asked, Ethan, do you remember how long this fig plant has been here? I shook my head blankly, unsure what she was trying to convey. 12 years. My dad bought this when he first started his business. He said back then that with this tree, his venture would sail smoothly. Looking back now, it does seem to have worked somewhat. Miller Corp has indeed thrived over the past decade. A hint of indescribable sorrow flickered in Chloe's usually cheerful eyes. My heart tightened as I earnestly said, it will continue to sail smoothly in the future too. Chloe gave a soft laugh followed by a long sigh. Actually, it's nothing. Everyone faces hurdles in life. It's just The company is my father's lifelong work. When I was little, I even felt the company was his real child, and I was just picked up somewhere. So, if possible, I'd still like to save it. Do you really have to trade your own happiness for this? Is it absolutely necessary to be Carter Johnson? I grasped her wrist tightly as I asked. Chloe glanced down at it, then turned to meet my gaze. A subtle emotion flashed through her eyes, but it was gone too quickly for me to discern what it was. Ethan, it's not as tragic as you make it sound. Though I don't have romantic feelings for Carter, who says marriage can only take one form, finding someone I love who also loves me back is too difficult. Perhaps Carter might be a decent alternative. But you won't be happy like this, I growled impatiently. Chloe was stunned by my outburst, then blinked somewhat unnaturally, as if asking me yet also questioning herself. Then how can one be happy? My throat felt clogged with gravel, making it impossible to utter another word. I love you, I can make you happy. I wanted desperately to say these words to her, but what then? The so-called love I professed was merely empty words, incapable of solving the problems Chloe currently faced. What I call love is nothing but a moonbeam in the water, fragile and broken at the slightest touch of reality. My shoulders slumped weakly. Never before had I felt such resentment toward my own incompetence. Don't overthink it, get some rest early. Chloe patted my shoulder before turning to leave. Watching her slender figure retreat, I recalled the business card pressed into my hand several days prior. Perhaps there was still another path I could take. Half a month later, Miller Corporation was exposed in a major financial scandal. Its co-founder had embezzled company funds for investments, only to lose most of it, leaving the firm strapped for cash. Shortly afterward, the majority of the company's projects were abruptly halted, facing the risk of massive compensation payouts. In the days that followed, Mr. Miller and Chloe sprinted between major banks, investment firms, and lending institutions, desperately seeking loans to alleviate the crisis. But given Miller Corp's precarious financial state, their efforts yielded little result. Just as most assumed Miller Corporation was doomed and employees began polishing their resumes to seek new jobs, Ross Industries issued an announcement. It had entered a strategic partnership with Miller Corporation, providing the necessary cash flow to navigate the crisis. No one knew exactly why Rose Industries had taken an interest in the teetering Miller company. Even Mr. Miller and Chloe were baffled. I was already making plans for retirement. Then that Rose kid shows up at my door. Tell me, what's really on his mind? How should I know? At first, I thought he had his eye on me. Cough. Chloe's words made me choke on my water. Oh come on, I was just making an offhand comment. No need to react so strongly. Chloe laughed and handed me 2 tissues. Just choked accidentally. I quickly took the tissues, wiping my mouth while secretly thinking, now that the Miller Company matter is resolved, I need to find the right moment to confess my feelings to Chloe soon. Can't keep delaying this any longer. 2 more weeks passed, and Chloe's birthday arrived as scheduled. Mr. Miller simply invited some close friends, relatives, and business partners to host a small birthday party for her at home. That day, Chloe wore a rare custom-made dress with blue floral patterns on a white background. As she moved, her graceful curves were fully revealed, making my eyes practically glued to her, unable to look away. She stood at the center of the crowd, seemingly glowing with a crystalline radiance, as beautiful as an angel. The only pity was that there was always an annoying fly buzzing around her. I glared venomously at Carter Johnson, who was standing beside Chloe with a radiant smile, itching to rush over and tear that disgusting face of his apart right now. When Miller Corporation faced financial difficulties, Chloe had immediately sought Carter's support. Yet after weighing his options, he actually refused, claiming many projects had payment withheld and he didn't have sufficient cash on hand. From a human standpoint, one could understand his tendency to seek profit and avoid harm. But now that Miller Corporation has regained its footing, how dare he have the audacity to cozy up again? A man like him doesn't deserve even a single extra glance from Chloe. Seeing the man start to get handsy with Chloe, I couldn't take it anymore and rushed over, shoving him away. Let's go cut the cake, sis, I said, pulling Chloe away, only to have Carter Johnson step in front of us to block our path. Think you can just shove someone and walk away? You must think I'm some pushover. I narrowed my eyes, yanking Chloe behind me, and said coldly, whether you're a pushover or not, I wouldn't know. But if you don't bother acting like a decent human and just buzz around like a fly, who else should I shove but you? Who the hell are you calling a fly? Carter Johnson glared with murderous intent. You, did that get through your thick skull? What the fuck gives you the right to cross me? I'd riled up Carter Johnson so badly that even his vocabulary turned filthy. He's my brother, Carter. Watch your damn mouth. Chloe stepped forward, frowning as she retorted, Ha, so this is that cheap younger brother of yours? Carter Johnson's eyes flashed with disdain before he sneered. No wonder you're so ill-mannered, a bastard orphan with neither father nor mother. Carter Johnson, Chloe made as if to rush forward and confront him, but I grabbed her arm and shook my head, once again positioning myself between them. Young Master Johnson may have both parents, but it doesn't seem like he's learned any manners either. You say? Carter Johnson was about to hurl insults when he noticed the gathering crowd of guests. His eyes gleamed with malice as he spat, The only reason you can speak to me in the same room now is thanks to the Miller's charity. To put it bluntly, you're just a stray dog begging for scraps under someone else's roof. But I'm generous, I won't stoop to arguing with a dog. His voice was quiet, yet every word rang clear in the ears of everyone present. In an instant, the guests turned their pitying and disdainful gazes toward me. Those looks felt like razor-sharp blades, slicing through my fragile skin, leaving behind bloody wounds. My fists clenched, every drop of blood in my body screamed and boiled. Just then, a chilling voice rang out from the crowd. "Who did you just call a stray dog?" People turned to look. Damian Ross was walking over with Mr. Miller. Mr. Ross? Carter Johnson's face flickered with shock before he swallowed awkwardly twice, forcing out a dry explanation. "Just some ill-bred punk, Ross. No manners?" Damian approached him, the cold smirk still lingering at the corner of his mouth as he swatted the champagne glass from Carter Johnson's hand in front of everyone. The splashing champagne drenched Carter Johnson, who could only gape in shock as if struck dumb. "Would you consider this good manners?" Damian fixed his gaze on Carter Johnson. "Mr. Ross, this joke MMPH. Smack." Before Carter Johnson could finish his sentence, Damian swung his fist, landing a punch that sent Carter staggering back 2 steps, nearly toppling him. The only sound in the venue was the melodious music fading gently in the background. Everything else had fallen into stunned silence. Everyone stared at this scene in disbelief, all wondering what kind of misfortune Carter Johnson had somehow brought upon Damian. "Now, does this count as good manners?" Damian repeated the same question, his tone unchanged. Carter Johnson was left speechless, covering his cheeks in shame and anger, his eyes darkened with stormy emotions, yet he dared not utter another word. Mr. Ross, my son is young and ignorant. If he said or done wrong, it was unintentional. Please don't hold it against him." A middle-aged man in his 50s rushed out from the crowd, shielding Carter Johnson behind him. "Oh, so this ill-mannered boy is your son?" Damian spoke bluntly and straightforwardly, making the middle-aged man flush red in an instant. Then Damian walked toward me. Instinctively, I tried to dodge, but he grabbed my arm in one swift motion. "This is my younger brother, Damian Ross's own flesh and blood." The moment these words were spoken, the entire room gasped. My brother suffered hardships in his youth, and it was only thanks to the Miller's care that we were reunited recently. I had intended to introduce him to everyone properly, but he wasn't keen on it, so I dropped the matter. Never did I expect that some ill-mannered dog would come barking today. Everyone's gaze toward Carter Johnson was tinged with sympathy, while he stared at me wide-eyed and dumbfounded, looking as if he'd seen a ghost. Since we're all gathered today coinciding with Miss Chloe's birthday banquet, I might as well introduce her to everyone now. I hope you'll all show her kindness in the future. Of course, absolutely. Amidst the chorus of agreeable and ingratiating voices, what should have been a chaotic night concluded in an unexpectedly harmonious atmosphere. The next morning, when I came downstairs after waking up, I saw Chloe already seated at the dining table, giving me a solemn wave. "It's finally happening." I sat nervously across from her, my heart filled with dread. Would she blame me for keeping it from her? Would she kick me out of the Miller family? Just as I was trembling with uncertainty, Chloe cleared her throat and asked, "When did you find out you were Damian Ross's brother?" 2 or 3 months ago. I hung my head, not daring to look at her. "So Damian took the initiative to collaborate with Miller Company because of you, is that right?" Any conditions for the exchange?" "No," I murmured softly. "None. Taking on Miller Company's mess, how could there possibly be no conditions at all?" Chloe pressed further. I promised Damian I'd change my surname back to my mother's, Rose." I took a deep breath, knowing there was no avoiding today, and laid out my entire background and the whole story from beginning to end. "That's pretty much how it happened. As for what came after, you already know the rest. Sis, I didn't mean to keep it from you, I just didn't want to leave this place. I don't care who I really am, I just want to stay with you." My voice trembled slightly as I looked at Chloe with desperate pleading in my eyes. "Then what do you want from me?" Chloe fell silent for a long moment before meeting my gaze and asking, "No, I don't want anything. Really nothing at all?" Chloe's words were like bait that instantly hooked the desire buried deep in my heart. As I looked at her, the thoughts that had merely been stirring now surged over me like a tidal wave. Chloe's voice softened as she nuzzled her cheek against my chest. My body tensed as I spoke slowly, articulating each word, "I want." "Chloe." Chloe froze at first, then flashed a look of bewilderment, before finally settling into an emotion too complex to decipher. Being silently stared at like this by her felt like being sliced to pieces with every passing second. Bitter resentment welled up from the depths of my heart. I bit my lower lip and decided hell with it, today was the day I'd lay it all out. "I like you. For a long, long time. That night you got drunk months ago. Actually you didn't do anything to me. It was me being despicable. I took off your clothes and pretended something happened. I joined Miller and Company because of you too. I wanted to get closer to you. I thought, maybe if I did, I'd stand a chance." Tears slid from my eyes as I laid my most wretched self bare before Chloe, thinking inwardly, just sentence me to death then. Yet after what felt like an eternity of waiting, instead of Chloe's judgment, I was met with her leaning in to gently wipe the tears from my cheeks. Ah! Following Chloe's sigh tinged with helplessness, I heard her say, "You're all claws and fangs in front of others, yet the moment you're with me, it's all tears and sobs. Never once cried as a child, but the older you get, the more you weep. She must utterly despise me now," I thought self-destructively. If you like me so much, how could you hold back for so long without saying a word? My lashes fluttered slightly as I remained silent. Forget it. There's no point in talking about this now. Sigh. I heard Chloe push back her chair and stand up, the sound turning my despair into a knife that stabbed straight through my heart, leaving a gaping hole. She must not even want to look at me now. And in the very next moment, my cheeks were cupped as Chloe approached me. "Silly," she murmured, pressing her warm lips against mine in a lingering kiss, her voice tender and affectionate. I was actually feeling guilty for entertaining thoughts about making a move on grass right by my home. Little did I know I was actually too late. "What do you mean?" I asked, bewildered. "Guess." Chloe gazed at me with a smile, her eyes filled with the kind of affection I'd only ever seen in my dreams. Boom! A mushroom cloud exploded in my mind, leaving me both shocked and thrilled. 1,000 words clogged my throat, yet not a single one could escape my lips. "Little fool," Chloe leaned in again. The moment our lips met, I heard her whisper, "Ethan, I like you too." The end.